to the next in our Bible studies from Carter's Lane Baptist Church. My name's Shaw Coleman, and I'm the minister of the church. And we're starting a new series as we're looking at the story of one of the churches that was set up by the late great St. Paul. A number of journeys that he made, quite extraordinary, the travels that he undertook. And during them, of course, there were all sorts of things. He was imprisoned, he was heckled, he had stuff thrown at him, he had a shipwreck, and yet he founded churches. And in this study we're going to look at one of the first, in fact the first church in Europe that he set up in Macedonia. The church was the one in Philippi, and we're going to spend some time looking at his letter to the Philippians. And the easy way to find that one, if you're not quite sure, there's the old rhyme, isn't there? Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, Acts and Romans follow on. And then somebody helpfully told me that the next letters are in alphabetical order in terms of the vowels in them. So Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians and Thessalonians. Anyway, that's where you'll find it, and let's have a look at it together. The first reference to Paul was when he was converted on the road to Damascus. He had been so busy persecuting Christians, but he soon changed his ways and became the foremost proponent of Christianity on all his travels. He often wrote letters to churches that he'd founded to encourage them, and he spent his time being very strategic in his thinking, even if it meant ending up in prison, which was where he was in Rome. This was the 4 visits that he made, including the trip to Rome, and we're going to be thinking particularly about this one, where if you look at the top, you'll see Philippi. That, of course, was the second missionary journey, but the letter to the Philippians was probably written when he was under house arrest in Rome, so a number of years later. When we look at the Bible, when we do these sorts of study, I am very anxious that they should not just be a dry academic study. In fact, I'm going to be careful how I put this, but sometimes some people get very precious about, I've been studying this, that and the other in the Bible, and what's the important thing it is to do that study. When the reality is that we look at it in order to reflect on faith and how it shapes us and what it makes us think about. And when we look at Philippians, we're doing it at a time when we're under the shadow of COVID-19. In some ways, there are points of similarity between our experience and when Paul was writing. I made a list of them here. Like Paul, things are on hold. He was stuck under house arrest, not in immediate danger, in fact talking quite a lot about his faith, but not able to get about very much. So it became a chance for him, as it has done for us, to reflect on what we have known over the years and to remember those people who have made it important. In this letter, he emphasises the support that he has received in difficult times. And we have been very grateful for the support that we too are receiving at this time. Interestingly, what he's also doing, and we'll see this in detail later on, is stepping back from the current day, taking a look, as it were, at a distance, just to see the beginning and the end, rather than be overwhelmed by the present. And finally, it seems a bit bleak to put it like this, but the uncertainty that Paul faced is the uncertainty that we may feel we're facing. The threat of the second wave and all that, we're not quite sure how things are going to be. And Paul is quite honest when he recognises that in prison, well, you may live, you may die. But the important thing is that whichever, he's with God. So it's in the light of that we can begin to make our study. I don't plan to do all of this today, but I want us to look over the next few sessions about 5 big themes that appear. So we're not going to look at Philippians chapter by chapter, but we're going to look at 5 topics. Firstly, his thankfulness to the Philippians. Secondly, the warning against the danger of self-made people. Thirdly, when he talks about the purpose, he wants people to imitate the humility of Christ. So humility, being humble, comes across. there is also a section when he wants to remind them that there is joy and peace in all things, whatever we face. And finally, the fact that throughout he emphasises the importance not of dogma, but of people. And that will shape the rest of this study. For today, I want us simply to look at his thankfulness to the Philippians. I'd like to read to you from a couple of parts of the letter to the Philippians. Firstly, in the first chapter, when he says this, I thank my God every time I remember you. In all of my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy. Why? Because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. Right from his second missionary journey when he first went to Philippi, set up the first church in Europe, until now with him in prison in Rome, he says that they have been with him right through. And then if we move to chapter 4, and there's a slightly longer section here, he says, you have been concerned for me, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I've learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through him who gives me strength. And you know that there's a yet coming. And he says, yet, it was good of you to share in my troubles. Moreover, as you Philippians know, in the early days of your acquaintance with the gospel, when I set out from Macedonia, not one church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving, except you only. For even when I was in Thessalonica, you sent me aid again and again when I was in need. Not that I'm looking for a gift, but I'm looking for what may be credited to your account. I've received full payment, and even more, I am amply supplied, now that I've received from Epaphroditus the gifts you sent. They were, he says, a fragrant offering, an acceptable sacrifice, pleasing to God. And my God will meet all your needs, according to his glorious riches in Christ Jesus. So right at the start and then at the end, he is saying thank you to the people of Philippi for their generosity, their kindness, their sustained understanding of his need and being involved in it. And that is a tremendous lesson, because what I have witnessed over the last few months of COVID-19 have been the way that as a church we have been supporting each other. We haven't neglected people, and through WhatsApp or through our regular updates or however we've done it on the phone, we have made sure that that generosity of spirit carries on. And Paul rates it. Paul sees that this is important. This is what a fellowship is about. Why? Because in the end, they're doing it because of the love of God shown in Jesus Christ. And so he is confident that God will meet all needs. That he emphasises that God does it through us. Paul's letter to the Philippians. Firstly, he wants to give them proper thanks, not because it's polite to say thank you, even though we do encourage youngsters to say thank you, but because it's genuine. It's not glib. It is from the bottom of the heart. And what's he thanking them for? Well, the fact that they have been constant and unwavering. From the beginning until the present, they have been there. And the great thing about the thanks that he's giving for them is that they have not been reactive. Not saying, well, what will be, will be. No, they've been proactive. Saying, here's my help. Not, well, what can I do to help? And I think they're fantastic lessons for us, really. The gratitude that we have for what others do for us must come from the bottom of our hearts. That we must say our own gratitude is coloured by our constancy and unwavering natures. We don't give up. we keep on going. And finally, we look for opportunities to do something, rather than sitting back and, well, maybe reacting. Interesting letter. Thank you for joining us today and for spending time doing this. It's only 4 chapters long, so perhaps before the next time we meet to look at the letter to the Philippians, you find time to read it through. It really is a fascinating letter to see. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. God bless you. We'll see you soon.